Hey guys, welcome back to the journey with Sarah Alexia. I know it has been a long time coming. When it comes to this content creating stuff, like sometimes you really just get a brain fog and you get a brain block. And you really just need some people or several people just to help you get back up again. And I just want to say I appreciate those who've been reaching out, who's been coming to me, texting me, calling me, even in person, like, bro, when are we coming out with another podcast? Well, I'm back and hopefully I'm better. But, to those who create content, I think, I understand the brain fog. I understand the inconsistency. And sometimes you really just got to push through. I know I've made a lot of excuses, but sometimes you really just got to push through. And you need those people in your circle in order for you to push past that thing that's blocking you. And for me, once I started writing again, I'm like, okay, I kept writing and writing again. And it just wasn't I would do it and I'm like, okay, this is fun. I like writing, but it wasn't doing it. But it wasn't until a couple people just kept talking to me. I was like, you know what, Sarah, just give it a try again. And once I picked up the microphone, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know, I'm back and hopefully I'm better. But let's get into it. All right, so as you can see, I'm going to start another season series. I'm not sure how podcast does it, but my last, I would say 15 episodes, that was season 1. Now we're coming in with a whole season 2 and something that I'm going to try to do. Hopefully I'm consistent with it. I'm going to give this series or season a title and it's going to be called The Dividing Line. You know how most pastors or these TED Talk people, they have either their sermon series or their title series. And, I wanted to talk about a series called The Dividing Line. Now, the reason why it's called The Dividing Line is because it's going to be a series that talks about boundaries. Now, within the last couple of months, or I would say this entire year of 2023, boundaries have been my best friend and my worst enemy all at the same time. And I'm just excited to share how boundaries have shaped and molded me and why they are beneficial. So before I get into the series, we're obviously going to look at the definition. That's something I'm not going to let go, is looking at definitions. I may not, look up definitions in all my episodes, but we are going to be looking at some definitions as we navigate this first episode. So the definition of the word boundary. So there are different ways this can be defined, but according to Minister to Google, this is my favorite definition. So the definition for boundary is a line that marks the limit of an area or a dividing line. So that's why this series is called The Dividing Line, because that really just stood out to me. So as I go through this series, you will hear me speak of the definition a lot, and we're going to get into the dividing line when it comes to school, when it comes to church, when it comes to family, when it comes to money, health, friendships, you name it, because I probably have a dividing area or a dividing line in all areas of my life. But what I really want folks to walk away with is knowing that there needs to be a dividing line. This is not something that you can, probably put off to the side. There actually needs to be some boundaries. There actually needs to be a dividing line in every area of your life, because it will lead to chaos. I've witnessed, if I don't have a boundary in work, there's going to be chaos in work. If I don't have a boundary when it comes to my family, there's going to be chaos within my family. If I don't have a boundary when it even comes with myself, there is going to be chaos, whether it be minor or major. And let me tell you why. So, in my last season, I always got a story when it comes to something. And I got a story, and I'm not going to be too specific with this story. I'm going to try to keep it brief and not share too much information. But this specific incident is what led me to believe that in life there always needs to be a dividing line, and you need to stick to your side of the line. So there was once this individual that I met through a friend, and I was using them for their services. And, the initial conversation was cool and all, and the services were being served. But throughout the period of me receiving the services, some boundaries were definitely crossed. When I tell you cross, and it's bro, what is going on here? So I'm not gonna lie, it was a boy. That's all. That's the only information I'm gonna share. It was a boy, or it was a man, I guess. And we would be on the phone for hours. Like, me and this dude were on the phone for hours, late in the midnight hour, texting every day, sending voice memos. Like, anyone who knows me, they know that voice memos are my love language. Like, send me a 2 to 3 minute voice memo. Tell me like what your thoughts are. And we were just sending voice memos, texting on the phone, just talking about nonsense that had nothing to do with the services. Like, absolutely nothing. And want to know what's crazy? Me and this dude had a conversation where we talked about boundaries. And I remember in the conversation, I was basically preaching that boundaries are necessary. And he would refute and say, well, boundaries are not necessary. Boundaries are just for people who operate in fear. And he had this whole theory that I was not aligned with. And like, the reason why I bring that specific part up is because like, I was doing all that preaching on boundaries and not once did I practice it. Like, I kept saying to this dude, like, boundaries are important. You should respect boundaries. But yet I wasn't practicing boundaries because I kept engaging in the late night phone calls. Like, at midnight talking to this dude. It's 2 a.m. talking to this dude. And like, we just kept up the constant communication that had nothing to do with the services. And eventually, feelings are caught, then feelings were hurt. Like, because eventually I did catch feelings because like, I don't know, maybe I'm different, but who wouldn't catch feelings if you're sitting there talking, getting to know someone, you're really feeling the vibes, and on top of that, you're like seeing them almost like 3 to 4 times a week. Like, feelings are being caught, and then feelings were also hurt, which led me to discontinue his services in a very toxic way. I'm not even going to talk about how that went, but I had to discontinue the services. And it was at that point in my life that I realized that there needs to be a dividing line. And not only does there need to be a dividing line, but I need to stay on my side of the line, because I was preaching all that boundaries nonsense. I was not nonsense, but I was preaching boundaries, basically preaching the dividing line, but yet I didn't stay on my side of the line. Like, it made me low-key a hypocrite, because like, sorry, you can't be saying, oh, boundaries are necessary, boundaries keep you safe, X, Y, and Z, but yet you did not practice your own boundaries. And like, you're probably like, well, Sarah, how did you not practice your own boundaries? Well, first of all, I shouldn't have been on the phone with him past 9 p.m. Like, I truly believe any phone call past 9 p.m. with the opposite sex should be a no-go. Because feelings, I don't care. Feelings are caught in the midnight hour. Someone could prove me wrong, but I truly believe feelings are caught in the midnight hour. And all the additional nonsense that was happening after that, man, like, feelings were bound to be caught. And that's why, things happened the way it happened. I already knew I crossed the line. Now, with that, like I said, my feelings were hurt. I could have badmouthed this man. I could have talked trash about him. I could have like told my friends about him, like, oh, stay away from him, X, Y, and Z. But I could not do that, because I really had to ask myself, like, where did I allow the boundaries to be crossed? Because if I never allowed my boundaries to be crossed, or cross my own boundaries, that's the important part. Like, it's one thing if people cross your boundaries, but when you cross your own boundaries, like, it's just chaotic, man. Like, it's just chaotic. It's nonsense. Like, it's just something that you don't want to be in. But like I said, like, if I didn't allow him to cross the boundaries, and if I didn't cross my own boundaries, I would have never gotten hurt. And like, that's basically what this series is going to be about. This series is going to be about, yes, setting your boundaries and not allowing others to cross them, but you also have to be in a position where you don't cross your own boundaries. Like, you have to set the boundaries and stick to them. And like I said, a boundary for this specific incident, and I'm not going to be here long, we're about to end in like 2 seconds, but a boundaries for this specific incident would have been, bro, do not talk to this man late in the midnight hour. That's 1. 2, make sure that the conversations that we're having is about the services. Yes, you can be friends with people like, you receive services from, but there should be no reason why, you're getting deep and personal unless, that's in the package. Like, I've heard of situations where, people start off as business partners, things of that nature, and like, it grew into something more. But like, I knew for this specific incident that wasn't going to happen. Like, I was just playing with fire. So like, that could have been my boundaries, like not also engaging in nonsense conversations that had nothing to do with the services, and also not preaching boundaries, but they're not also abiding by them. So like, there were several boundaries that I crossed in this specific this specific incident. And yeah, we're just going to get deeper into it. Like, that was just real surface, but we're going to get deeper into when it comes to the dividing line. So I hope you stick around and that you're just as excited and that you actually learn something from this specific series. So I will catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.